Geek Tank Radio on 98.1 The Max.
Welcome, everyone. We are the Geek Patrol, and our microphones don't have a stun setting. Today, we're joining you from Ben Grimm's 30-year class reunion. You know, there's always those people in your class, you're like, they haven't changed a bit. They still look the same.
Yeah, well.
I sure hope they brought plenty of food for this thing. I feel like the buffet table's going to get cleaned out pretty fast.
Well, you know.
Okay.
I still like the fact that the home ec teacher got all excited because she could use her dustbuster again.
There you go.
There you go.
So, welcome to Geek Tank Radio, everybody. I'm Joe Thorderson, here with my friends Brandon Olmstead and Allan Gilbreth. And
You
our
have
pal,
got a loose definition of friends these days.
well, current friends, that could change. And, of course, our buddy Max over there behind the glass.
Your workplace proximity associate.
That's pretty good. And that's a new name for my band, too.
I mean, you can go all Ron Swanson like that, but I mean, come on, none of us really work with Joe. We are here to
Our
hinder
place
him.
proximity associates.
Yeah.
Yeah. Somehow we just wind up here every week, and it happens. So,
Darndest thing.
hey guys, speaking of the darndest thing, oh boy, the Ahsoka trailer dropped, and
yes, it did.
it got about 8 billion views in 20
about
minutes.
15 minutes, yeah.
So it's, however, it's one of those that you had to watch. I don't know about you, Brandon. I've watched it 3 or 4 times, and I paused it at several occasions to make sure I was seeing what I thought I was seeing.
I watched it twice, but then, other news started coming in that actually got me a little more excited than even the Ahsoka trailer.
Oh, okay.
But we'll get into that later in the show.
Okay, because the Star Wars celebration is going on this week, so I feel like there's breaking news, there's things, and then there's always and then there's always the controversy. And let's face it, okay, some things we like. There's no, when people talk about Disney Star Wars, there's some people that say it with disdain. There's some people that say it like they can do no wrong. It's really a mixed bag. There's so much content. Some of it's awesome. Some of it,
Yeah, I mean, it's like
so
with
you take it for what it is.
It's genuinely like with any franchise. You're going to have the parts you like. You're going to have the parts you don't like. None of it ruins what you like, but everybody seems to act that way.
Yeah.
What is with I just want to look at Brandon and go, all right, so what is with the fandom if all you want to do is complain about it?
So here's my theory. Here's my theory.
Really, seriously.
Is that, you've always had things where people, like argue back and forth. Your Stargate fans, they argue with your Babylon 5 fans, who argue with your Sliders fans, who argue with, you know how it goes. Star Wars fans argue with Star Wars fans, while other Star Wars fans sit back and watch it. It's like a giant melee, and everybody looks the same.
It reminds me of like those giant Thanksgiving dinners, and you sit there at the end of it,
and then your uncle brings up politics.
Well, you sit at the end of it, and you realize this is why I don't see you people the rest of the year. What is the point of an amazing fandom? Now, I do have one huge criticism of the quote unquote Disney, and I'm making the big air bunny ears in the air here.
He's doing that because he doesn't want the mouse to stop the payments.
Okay.
Well, I'm not getting payments. That's my number one complaint. But number two,
but as long as they continue to pay others, eventually we might get a cut of that.
They are producing so much bloody content. It's almost like there's all this other stuff, and then this entire, and I do mean the word, universe.
Yes.
There's so much.
Yep.
And this is just one universe they're producing.
True.
It's almost overwhelming trying just to keep up, much less catch up.
Oh, don't worry about keeping up. It'll always be there.
Apparently.
I don't know.
There's always going to be something new.
There's always too much.
Well, I've noticed that Joe has already begun to lose his argument with you.
Which one?
Over his streaming services.
Well, no. I'm
because there's no way you're going to escape the mouse.
I'm very much, in Joe's court. I think that when The Mandalorian is over, him giving up Disney Plus until he jumps back on
A week later.
Well, no, it's
About 4 months. Ahsoka comes out in August, so I can 3 or 4 months off.
He can wait till August.
Right.
In that amount of time, he can go ahead and jump on and get his Apple subscription so he can watch Tetris so we can talk about it in full.
Well,
because, oh my God, that was such a good movie.
We got to talk some Tetris.
Actually, that's what I was kind of eager to ask you guys about.
We got to talk Dungeons and Dragons, too.
We'll talk Dungeons and Dragons.
We got to.
When I get a chance to finally go and watch it in the theater.
Mm-hmm.
Well, my feedback I'm hearing about Dungeons and Dragons is it's surprisingly good. Like people, it looks corny. Right. It looks like it's not taking itself serious, which is probably a good thing. But it apparently is holding up.
Well, the thing was, the people who
corny, but you got to deliver.
The people who made it know what it's like to sit around a D&D table and the things that go on.
But they got to translate that to people like us that have never played, and apparently it does a good job of both, right?
Well, yeah.
Like it satisfies the fans, and it also introduces people that aren't familiar.
Well, we've also got 2 lead actors. I'm just going to pick on just 2 of them real quick that are good at delivering ridiculous action.
Okay. Yeah, I know who you're going to say, but go ahead and say it.
Well, I mean, I'm
we
just
got Chris
pointing
Pine, we got Michelle Rodriguez. And you got to remember to go ahead. You got to go ahead and say, when you say delivery, it's not just about delivering action. Sometimes you got to deliver the right comment at the right time. And Hugh Grant does that like a prince.
Well,
and Hugh Grant's playing a sleazy villain. Can he pull that off?
Yeah, I wonder. Let's
Come on.
see.
Everybody has seen the trailer where he goes, I don't want to see you die here, so I'm going to leave the room.
Well, like I said, so you really got to have people that can deliver. And the other thing is, a lot of the previous D&D movies had the chemistry of a glass of water.
Yeah.
Well, and probably everybody's covered in makeup, and
this bunch actually had some chemistry.
Yeah, it looks fun. I'm definitely going to see it. And, and I don't know what it is. Like I said, I love Michelle Rodriguez. I don't know. She reminds me of that, person. She always steals the scene. She's just something about her. I don't know.
She hands in a great performance every time you see her.
So that's out there. So, but none of us have seen it yet. So there you go. There's so much content. We haven't got around to it, but we will. If you've seen it,
let us know how you feel.
And then guys, before we move on to because I know Star Wars is going to weigh heavy on the show. I think we do want to talk about Tetris when we come back because I haven't seen it yet. So I hope this will be a spoiler light discussion, right, you guys?
I won't spoil anything.
Okay, sounds good. All right, so we're gonna talk about that when we come back here on Geek Tank Radio.
You're listening to Geek Tank Radio on 98.1 The Max. Brandon Olmsted has a hobbit hole in his front yard. The Geek Patrol is back.
I like seeing what it looks like when he interacts with the orc farm neighbors.
Yeah, I'm going to have to sue you all for defamation there because that is not a hobbit hole. That is a zombie portal. Get your stuff.
It can be multi-purpose.
No, hobbits don't try to eat you.
Okay.
They try to eat your crops.
I'd say after the orc barbecue, it looks more like a zombie hole.
Yeah,
I think it looks good, Brandon.
After the Roman bathrooms, we're talking about zombie holes.
Yeah.
It's like, look, you pay good money for something.
Right.
Just because they're pygmy zombies doesn't make them hobbits.
Okay. I didn't think we get that much mileage out of that rejoinder, but good job, Max.
I mean, if you and Max wrote these, they're all going to be garbage.
So welcome
Y'all
back
have
to,
the same sense of humor.
Pretty much. Welcome back to Geek Tank Radio, everybody.
I feel bad for Max.
I'm Joe Thorderson here with my friends Brandon Olmsted and Alan Gilbreth and our buddy Max over there behind the glass.
You're lucky I don't cut your mics right now, boys.
Hey,
you're lucky I don't talk to your boss about how much you've been playing with the keyboard over there.
Ooh, well played.
And if you like those rejoinders, stand by because we got many more of those.
We got more.
Why you always got to open the curtain, man?
Anyway, hey guys, so we were talking about we're talking about a few things
later
in the show.
Tetris.
We're definitely going to talk about Star Wars Celebration and Ahsoka, the trailer. I'd rather kind of talk about that too, but Tetris, you saw. Now we talked about this. We made a point of what a almost epic trailer this thing was.
Yes, it
on
did
Apple.
not disappoint.
And I haven't seen it yet, so but I can figure out sort of what the story's about just based on the trailer. But without ruining it, you guys actually know the true story of Tetris, and so Brandon, it held up.
As much as
some of us were there,
as much as
Alan
any
was
of us
probably
know
behind the scenes. So.
As much as any of us know the true story of Tetris, we've got to go by what Hank Rogers and Alexei Petronov.
There you go.
It's a
have
cool
always
name.
said.
Okay.
Well, Alexei is the original designer. He's the author of Tetris. He's the guy who, while working, for the KGB in communications and espionage and all that jazz, decided, I'm bored. This is quiet. Let me take a bunch of parentheses and put them into this tiny, what was it, a Commodore 64 that he built that on?
The Russian version.
The Russian version,
Wow.
which
was 20 years out of date. And
yeah,
they actually were originally working like 3 researchers to a desk on a mainframe.
Wait, what year is this happening? Because I know the Tetris came out in the 80s, but what year we're talking about when he first started?
Yeah,
okay. We're all during the 70s.
Okay.
That's when he's
Computers didn't look anything like they do now.
No.
I don't know, but the thing is, it's interesting. So Tetris is sort of, everybody really knows it. We all have it on our phones, right? I mean,
if you haven't got it on your phone, you've got it on your laptop. If you don't have it on your laptop, you've played it 100 times somewhere.
Yeah.
Because
it's originally a Russian puzzle game, and you got these little pieces, came in a bag, and you had a little rectangle, and you would sit around, and this was the original fidget spinner. You'd sit around and try to come up with different ways of getting the little puzzle pieces in the box.
Okay.
And that was kind of his pastime as a kid. So when he finally got his hands on the computer and all the official people went home and the programmers, being programmers, would stay until like midnight.
Mm-hmm.
And he got to wondering, I wonder if I can put this on the computer. And he
just
did.
Probably for his own entertainment,
Just
right?
basically for him and a few of the other guys. And there was another young kid they got brought into the bunch. And, as they passed it around, everybody went, well, okay, I solved it. Now what? Well, that doesn't do anything else.
Okay.
So then we're going to make it so that we can have more pieces. All right, we solved that. Now what? Well, we're going to make the row disappear. Now what? And
I love this trip down memory line, because can we get to the movie now?
Yeah. No, but Brandon, it was just a couple. I mean, this is goofing around in just a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
And now they're sharing Tetris on 5 1/4-inch floppy drives.
Which did not have a name to begin with.
So
you know.
As an outside observer who
it was called gene. It was something about genetics. The original name to this was like gene editing or something crazy like that.
Okay. Well, as an outsider who doesn't know the story, the idea that they would even make a movie about Tetris sounds ridiculous. So it's like, it doesn't sound interesting, but Brandon, as you
now
observe, there's behind the scenes stuff.
And here's the deal. It's like, everybody's heard about how, they wanted American whatever. They would, Russian property was not for sale. It wasn't for license.
Okay.
You weren't giving these things out. Elorg, who eventually published the game in Russia for the PC, did not hand out anything for anybody until a guy named Roger Stein comes into it, and he wants to license it for a British company called Mirrorsoft. They really aren't just this guy. Maxwell. He owns a media empire.
Okay.
And he's basically going to trade encyclopedias for this license. When they bring the license over, though, they break a certain rule. It's only supposed to go for PC. They start breaking it up into doing consoles and everything else. Hence the illegality of it.
Well, and we got to keep in mind, this is back in the day. We didn't have a smartphone. The only technology was maybe your computer, which was still a new thing.
Well,
right?
no, we're past this. At this point, the Nintendo Entertainment Center has come out. We have arcades. These are the two.
Atari exists. Yeah.
These are the two formats that it is broken up into, which it should never have been done.
No, what I meant.
Hold on.
You got to get people to spend money on it, is what I'm saying.
Right. Well, the Russians don't care about money on this.
Right.
They're more about what they can do to help bolster Russia and the Communist Party. They don't care about the money. They have all the money they need because they print their own money. They choose what their value is. We don't.
No, I'm saying this is back in the day. You either had to put a quarter in a machine and pay for it, or you had to own a computer or a gaming system.
Right, but once again, as with the story earlier, you're jumping into a part that has nothing to do with this movie.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it's just an observation. I'm like, this seems like a hard sell.
Right.
It's a little square game, and
except for the fact that it's addictive.
Yeah. Okay.
Bingo.
And Hank Rogers, who is out in Vegas trying to sell his game, which is an electronic version of Go, which if you played Go, it's the craziest version of Chinese checkers you'll ever play. I mean, that's just the way of saying it. It's like Chinese checkers meets Othello meets, a brain aneurysm.
Okay. All right. Well, hey, we'll probably have a few parting thoughts. And then I can't wait. When we come back, we're also going to talk about the Ahsoka trailer.
You're listening to Geek Tank Radio on 98.1 The Max. Mr. Spock hates these guys. The Geek Patrol is back.
We are quite a lot.
I think Mr. Spock is giving us something other than the Vulcan salute.
Yeah.
He only gives it halfway.
Yeah. The half
Goes up
salute.
the other way.
It's Allan's fault. So anyway, welcome back to Geek Tank Radio, everybody.
What's the opposite of live long and prosper?
Yeah.
Listen to Geek Tank Radio.
I'm Joe Thorderson here with my friends Brandon Olmsted and Allan Gilbreth and our buddy Max over there behind the glass. Yeah, and, pretty hostile.
Mr. Spock's knocking on the glass.
Okay. All right, let's move along.
We've got to cancel all the rejoinders because they do take up too much of the segment.
Well, before the break, we
It's
were
like Mr. Spock's knocking on the Ouija
See
board right
what I'm
now.
telling you?
Yeah, if you're just tuning in, we were talking about before the break. We were talking about Tetris and I guess it's a movie, right? It's not
a 2-hour movie.
2-hour movie that dropped on Apple TV, and it's probably going to make me go ahead and at least do a temporary subscription. I'm trying to not do more subscriptions, but
it's worth it.
And I haven't seen it yet. Brandon and Allan saw it, and somehow we wound up talking. We did more of a history lesson than even discussed the movie.
It's genuinely your fault because you asked Allan about a real story, and Allan can't stop.
Okay, so
you don't tap on the archives and go, hey, what you got for me? Because you're gonna learn.
It's all right. The topic and the game are addictive, and now we have a movie about what happens when people want to get their hands on this.
I think the lesson
and
here,
genuinely, this movie is more about the introduction of the Game Boy than it even is about Tetris.
It is.
Okay.
It is.
Well, let's just agree on this. Everybody's got a unique story to tell if it's done well. How about that? So even a video game about squares falling into place. So
Yeah.
All right. Hey, let's shift gears now. This is interesting. So right now this weekend, of course, it was Star Wars Celebration and this is probably better served recapping next week, don't you think, Brandon?
No.
Or is there news that's breaking that we have to react to?
There will be more news next week for us to talk about then.
Okay, but what do we want to hit first? Do we want to hit any of the news out of there the Ahsoka trailer?
The Ahsoka trailer is news out of there, Joe. Let's just go ahead and go.
Well, that's what I was excited
I swear,
about.
You're like a dog with a bone.
Okay, all right.
Let's talk about the Ahsoka trailer.
Go ahead, Brandon.
Wasn't that that expected? I mean, unexpected. We knew that we were going to get footage. This footage was actually dropped at Celebration last year. They just never released it to the public.
Right.
And if you loved Rebels, if you loved Ahsoka in the later seasons of Clone Wars as she became just like a major character, this takes place, I believe, 10 years or it's 5 to 10 years after the end of Rebels.
Right. Rebels is awesome.
Ahsoka is, she's already done her deal with Din Djarin and Grogu, and hung out with Luke Skywalker as he built his Jedi Academy. Mm-hmm. And now there's new rumblings coming about the rise of Thrawn as the heir to the Empire.
Right.
So she goes to get Sabine, and first of all, it's really kind of cool to see Sabine all grown up.
It's weird seeing her with long hair, but I had to double check. I'm like, okay, she's got purple hair. It's got to be Sabine. Right. And Sabine is cool. And once again, folks, if you have never watched any of the animated, Rebels is right up. The Rebels and Clone Wars and The Bad Batch are musts.
I would say
Rebels is outstanding.
I would say that Rebels stands, head and shoulders above the Clone Wars. I'm sorry, it just does. The Clone Wars are great. It's a great series from the little shorts that Jendy Tartakovsky started with into the CGI cartoon we got all the way through. There's not I mean, there's some weaker episodes, but there's not a bad episode.
I do have to say this, though, because I watched Rebels, and it had to grow on me, and it also was because Dave Filoni has this thing of he's going to take a character and he's going to make you, like, I couldn't stand Ezra.
Well, you also couldn't stand Kanan.
I couldn't stand any of those guys, and then by the end of it, you're like, okay, these guys are great, because he lets them evolve.
What they have, what Rebels has that the Clone Wars and Bad Batch are both missing is that you have extremely conflicting personalities right off the bat.
Yeah.
The Batch, they work together. They were working together beforehand. They've already grown together before you meet them. Your whole deal is learning about Omega and how she works into it. The Clone Wars, it's how it starts off with how the Jedi work with these guys during the Clone Wars, and then it becomes more about the Jedis than the clones half the time. Mm-hmm. But it's really good. Rebels, you take people who really shouldn't get along, you sandwich them together in a way where they have to learn to work together. They overcoming the conflict of themselves before anything else, it drives it home. To see characters like, we saw Zeb Wells show up in a recent episode of The Mandalorian, but to see Hera and Sabine, and you got Ahsoka, and they're all working towards a specific goal. And right now, it's like, what we're getting with Ahsoka is what happens with these guys after the rebellion is over, after the New Republic is starting to take hold,
right?
After remnants of the Empire are starting to show back up to try and stop the progress, basically.
Yeah, because it's not like it's just it's not like the Return of the Jedi happens and then everything's hunky dory in the galaxy. Yeah. There's still going to be problems. So, and the thing that's interesting though is you talked about I think the dynamics of the characters that are interesting to me are the fact that there's no black and white characters. There's especially Thrawn. That guy should be categorized as a brutal dictator or something, but he's actually you could actually see his point of view.
It's genuinely something that you get a lot with the Favreau Filoni Star Wars universe. Is that there's nobody there who's your pure hero or your pure villain.
Right. I
mean, you see the overshadows. In Bad Batch recently, this season, we finally get to see Palpatine. And we know Palpatine's pure evil, but he's such a insignificant portion of the story. He's a driving force, but everything else is about the people around him. Mm-hmm. Andor actually is the one that I was really excited for with, when it comes to showing the shades of gray within the Empire and the Rebellion. Mm-hmm. And, but Ahsoka, I think it's just going to be there's going to be a lot of action, a lot of lightsaber duels. We see what look like Sith uprisers that don't really fit the mold of a Sith upriser.
That's who I wanted to ask you about. And then the guy pulling that whole maneuver exactly like Darth Vader.
Yeah.
In the so that I was kind of curious about that. The tone looks great. Well, see,
these are all new characters who haven't been peppered in before, so I can't wait to learn about them.
Yeah. So we're gonna I'm going to ask you off the air because I had about 8 million questions to ask about this. So, all right, well, we'll revisit that when we come back here on Geek Tank Radio.
You're listening to Geek Tank Radio on 98.1 The Max. If you cut open a Sarlacc stomach, it would pretty much look like this radio show. The Geek Patrol is back.
Who wrote that one, I wonder?
I don't know, but we got to get some real comedy writers on this. What's Scott J. Carroll doing?
I can up it to 2 Subway sandwiches.
It's pretty accurate. I think it's a very apt description. So welcome back to Geek Tank Radio, everybody. I'm Joe Thorderson here with my friends Brandon Olmstead and Allan Gilbreth and our buddy Max over there behind the glass. And I'm looking down. I'm not looking at any of my co-hosts because
because you should be ashamed.
Exactly. Hey, before the break, we were discussing the Ahsoka trailer. What we really were discussing is it being a live-action sequel to Rebels, right?
Yeah,
I mean, that's a pretty accurate description. I like the look of it, man.
Oh,
and then they dropped
gorgeous.
every character we've been wondering about for years, like Thrawn or Ezra or Sabine, and all these characters interacting. Even what's his face, Chopper showing up.
Greatest droid in this side of R2-D2.
Yeah, he's pretty fun, and I hated him at first, and then I grew to like him too. It's funny, like I said, Rebels. I hated the characters at first, and then I pretty much loved everyone.
Well, see, and it's great to see that we're what we're getting with Ahsoka, and of course we sadly have to wait until 2024, August of 2024, before we get Andor season 2. I hate that we have to wait.
It'll be here before you know it, though.
I know, but
yeah.
it's like I want it now. It's like I'm being that entitled fan. Gimme. But they gave me a lot to look forward to with this. I think one of the first things that I'm looking forward to the most out of the announcements they made was that James Mangold, who he did Logan, he's doing the new Indiana Jones. He's doing a Dawn of the Jedi based story. It's basically the first Jedi, Jedi who learned how to manipulate the Force and use this.
Ooh, that sounds
This is going to take place like 250,000 years in the past. I mean, this is like a biblical story when it comes to Star Wars.
Oh, that's neat.
That's
like, what I've been waiting for.
Yeah, I mean,
really old, ancient stuff.
And you're getting that. Meanwhile, as much as I know it'll pain a lot of people to hear this, we're getting a movie that takes 10 to 15 years, plays 10 to 15 years after Rise of Skywalker. Where Rey is rebuilding the Jedi Order. That's going to be a trilogy. We don't know who else coming back to this, but Daisy Ridley was there at Celebration for the announcement. Looking forward to see what can go on in a Disney-based trilogy that has, while it connects to everything, isn't beholden to everything, because that's where you ended up angering your fans, is because they expected something. Mm-hmm. This is something farther in the future that the people we cared about, from our original trilogy, they're all gone.
It's almost like a blank slate, right? Okay.
But, and this is the one that just knocks it out of the park for me. And I mean, I don't know if Joe heard about this one, but this is the one that'll blow him away. Is Dave Filoni is directing a Star Wars film that is the wrap up to what would be considered the Filoniverse. It's the story that wraps up The Mandalorian and the Book of Boba Fett and all these other things that are taking place in that era.
Wait. Is it animated or live action?
It's going to be a live action film. It's going to be a genuine movie. And of course, we've still got another season of The Mandalorian possibly after this. We know we're going to, we've got Skeleton Crew, which takes place during this time. Ahsoka takes place during this time. The Bad Batch, it's gonna close all the storylines. So it's, I'm excited, but at the same time, it's a little bittersweet because that's going to be his finale for that.
That's what you're making me wonder. Is this his swan song? Is this?
Well,
but at some point, you got to drop the mic and leave the room.
It's
right?
not. I don't think it's him leaving Star Wars. I think it's him closing one chapter so he can begin another one.
Maybe it's the way to go. I mean, Seinfeld did that. They ended the show while it was still good. Maybe that's what you do here. Yeah. You don't want it to peter out. Right. So.
Well, he's taking advantage of the fact that he can wrap up all the loose ends. He can wrap up, and then if he's any good at this, and I say that very sarcastically, he will have opened the door to everybody's next vision, where they're not so beholden to quote unquote the old canon.
Well, now it's a huge universe. You can explore any
you can
part
now
of it,
go play on 1,000 different planets with 1,000 different species, 100 different ways. You just basically set up the next 20 years of having a lot of fun telling great stories.
I just want to say, I think my only beef with anything that I've had in Star Wars where I've been disappointed was I just think they didn't develop the characters right, or the story made no sense, or it was lazy writing or something. I think you could take any era of Star Wars and make it fascinating. I love that notion that you just talked about, Brandon, with the ancient origins of the Jedi. That sounds fascinating. And that's like you said, that's a blank slate. Anybody that they're going to introduce. All I know is characters.
If they don't find a way to somehow make that Jedi's name George Lucas, I feel that we are going to get.
Okay, so they could rearrange it like Lord Voldemort, I am Tom Riddle. So
right.
Next week we need to come back with our acronym, or what are some rearranged names from George Lucas?
How much time do we have left in the show? Because you brought it up now, and in the last 2 minutes of the show, I have to ask you, what are your thoughts on HBO Max developing a Harry Potter TV series and stealing an idea me and you had 6 years ago on this show?
Okay, 6 years ago, I would have been excited about this or so, but now I'm just... for one thing, my idea was to do it animated, and I even think what I said was I want to get all the writers that do all these great animes and maybe even do an anime Harry Potter universe, but I think it's... I mean, if it's done correctly, this is the way to do it. They were going to take one season would be one book.
Right.
And so if they stuck strictly to the books and they don't get a bunch of side characters or new things that didn't happen, I'd be all over this. But don't let J.K. Rowling write the dialogue.
I would. Right.
She's not a good
she sucks
screenwriter.
She sucks at dialogue.
She's a great novelist, not good at
I wouldn't say she's a great novelist either. I think she hit on a subject that people felt was good. No, they're not really written books. They're well-read books.
Okay.
But it doesn't matter because we just heard, earlier this week that the Department of Justice is going to be looking into the Discovery Warner Brothers merger because apparently it may have broken a lot of rules.
Yeah.
Okay. So what do we just tease like 4 things, right?
Right.
Okay.
So now they get to find out what we learn next week.
Okay.
Tune in next week.
And of course, we haven't even barely scratched the surface on Star Wars Celebrations. So okay.
Well,
so there's more to come.
That's the big info that they've given us, though.
Okay. Well, pretty interesting, wide-ranging, and unique episode of Geek Tank Radio, but it's in the can. Time to get out of here. So until next week, we are the Geek Patrol, and I am Joe Thorderson.
I'm Allan Gilbreth.
I'm Maximilian.
And I am Brandon Olmsted, trying my best to be the king of cliffhangers.